eyes, and I don't want to do this because they will be against this. But another teacher from Galilee, of all places, comes, and Josephus is quite specific. He's from Galilee. His name is Eliezer. He even names him. And he teaches that you must circumcise in order to convert. And the picture in Josephus, this is a really incredible picture, is that the Talmud is even more detailed. That Izat and his brother Monobasis are reading the Bible, the book of Genesis. And they come to the passage in Genesis where it says Abraham circumcised his whole household and was commanded by God to do that. And Eliezer, the teacher, asked them, the mother having converted without insisting on this and not wishing to do this kind of thing, do you know the meaning of what you are reading? And they stop and they think and they understand the implications, and they immediately go out and are circumcised, according to the picture in Josephus and the Talmud. I don't say that's 100% accurate, but it's interesting, and it makes a lot of sense in the context of these arguments we will see in Paul over whether you need to circumcise or you don't need to circumcise. That's, in the letter to the Galatians, wouldn't you say, no, that's his whole issue. That's what he's arguing about. That's the whole ball of wax in the letter to the Galatians, plus a few other side points. Corinthians is not so much that, but Romans has a lot of that in it too. Anyway, let's go back to the story here. Here is a more blousy picture of something happening. It's not as clear. But this story revolves around a painting of Jesus, an image of Jesus. So here, Agabus, prince of Edessa, sends greetings to Jesus. He actually sends a letter to him. I can't imagine such a letter was ever written. I don't think Jesus could have been that well known, that far afield, or that important at this time. But this is a mythological thing that got into the chancery records in Syria. And of course, Eusebius believes anything anyway, the way Mel Gibson does. And that's quite possible. Anyway, the Jews were murmuring against you, and so on and so forth. Oh, then Jesus answers. I know, well, first he says, I know you've been enlightened by the rays of divine truth, etc., etc., etc. Then Jesus writes back. Again, I doubt that Jesus wrote any king in northern Syria. But it's a good yarn, and obviously would have impressed the believers. Agabus, this is great. You have believed without seeing. Other people see and they don't believe. That's the general thrust of the Gospels as we know them anyway. But in regard to what you have written, look, I'm going to send some of my disciples up to you. And they're going to heal you like I heal people here, and give you life to thee, and so on. So then these letters are in the Syriac, he said. So after Jesus ascended, obviously they didn't go up there at that point, Judas, who is called Thomas there. So now we know, and I think now we are more accurate than even though this I don't think is very accurate, I think it's more accurate than Acts. So if you want to say where these documents come in order, I would put this before the book of Acts and even the Gospel in terms of its accuracy, even though I don't think it's very accurate, because it's got this particular fact right. How do you know right? Because it makes sense, that's why. Judas, who's also called Thomas, sent Thaddeus, the apostle, and also one of the 70, so he's got him as a double here, and he knows the house he sent him to, Tobias' house. Now, whether that was really, Tobias is a famous name in northern Syria. There's a book called a Book of Tobias in the Apocrypha about some pious events there about this. So whether that's just because of the book called Tobias or it really was Tobias' house. Anyway, Thaddeus was healing people with the power of God. Agabus heard about this, and he thought this was the very person Jesus had written that he would send him. And he sent to Tobias and asked him to send Thaddeus to him. And Thaddeus tells him these different things about Jesus, and then he humbles himself, and he wants to be part of this. And he tells him the basic doctrine. he raised himself from the dead, and he ascended to his Father, and so on. Anyway, Agabus is overcome, convinced, and commands his subjects to be converted. Notice, by the way, these conversions are taking place through power conversions. They're not on an individual level. Once he converts all his subjects. Same as Constantine 308 years later does. Anyway, these things were done in 340. 340, I don't know what the original date parameter is there. You may have a footnote about that. Is it a footnote of the Penguin there? I don't know what calendar that is. Probably the Persian calendar.
The Seleucid era.
Huh?
Of the Seleucid era.
The Seleucid era. Well, it seems a bit odd because, oh yeah, that's right, because, yeah, that would be right. Yeah, I wasn't figuring, yeah, because Alexander died in 323. So that makes sense, yeah. So the Seleucid era would begin after Alexander's death. That's good. Yeah. It's the Seleucid dating from the beginning of the Seleucid dynasty. It's been around a while, that dynasty at this point. And according to my notes, it's 28 to 29 AD. By the way, that would put Jesus again earlier, his crucifixion earlier than we normally think. We think of it as 30 at the earliest and 33 in some respects. So this already shoves him back a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 into the 20s. So this, I'm going to make a note here, puts crucifixion back earlier than what we normally think. Again, not that it proves anything, but that's quite interesting. They're sure about the date of the conversion of this king. Okay, that's the story, I think. Now, let's see, is there any more here? That's it. There should be one last thing. Where is he called the great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates? That's the only thing I missed here. Oh, there it is. It's in the beginning. Who reigned over the nations beyond the Euphrates. So Agabus is the great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates in some translations. Perhaps not in this one, but what do you have that in your Penguin, what's he called there in chapter 13, the second sentence?